Americans who are working in other countries, and I asked them, what is the impression of what's happening in America today? And I thought the reports I would get would be a little different. You know what they said to me? They said, America is back. You are now tackling big items again. Not only are you going to lead your own country, but you will help again lead the world. They were fearful of the competition of rising America one more time. So don't vote for the status quo. Vote for a tax cut. Vote for reform. Don't vote because some leader whipped you and intimidated you. Vote for your constituents. Vote for your country, and vote to raise the paychecks of America. I yield back.
Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the stock market's been going up since March of 2009, and we've had 88 straight months of economic growth. I yield 1 minute to the gentlelady from Alabama, Congresswoman Sewell.
Gentlelady from Alabama is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, the Republican majority is ramming this tax bill through, calling it a, quote, Christmas gift to the American people. I have never seen such intellectual dishonesty in my life. It's more like the Grinch that stole Christmas. In poll after poll and through elections in New Jersey, Virginia, and my home state of Alabama, the American people continue to send the message that they do not want this tax bill to move forward. But here we are, watching the fiscal hawks of the Republican Party blow through every red light on the way off the cliff, adding $1.5 trillion to the deficit. What's the rush, I ask you? Last week, the American people in my home state of Alabama spoke up and spoke out. We deserve to have our duly elected senator to vote on this bill. What's the rush? Not one hearing, not one expert testifying, and no regular order. I ask you, Mr. Speaker, what is the rush? I believe the rush is because they know this is not a tax reform, it's a tax sham. The American people deserve better. My constituents from Alabama deserve better. We should vote no on this tax bill.
Gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to yield 1 minute to the Secretary of the Republican Conference, Mr. Smith of Missouri.
Gentleman from Missouri is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to represent the folks of Southeast Missouri. The district that I represent, the average median income is right at $40,000. It's one of the lowest average median incomes in the country. I've asked my folks back home just last week if they support this tax bill. And in fact, 67% say they support the Trump tax bill. Mr. Speaker, $40,000 back home is a salary. It's not a Christmas bonus that people get in New York City or California. It is $40,000 is their salary. Mr. Speaker, let me give you some facts. Mr. Speaker, the first $24,000 that people earn in Southeast Missouri will be at a 0% tax rate. A family of four who makes $55,000 will pay zero in income tax. When you look at a median average income in Southeast Missouri being $40,000, we are winners. What you're hearing on the other side is complete false and absolute lies, Mr. Speaker. I ask this body to support the conference committee. Thank you.
Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With that, I would like to yield 1 minute to the very successful gentlelady from Washington, Congressman Del Bene.
Gentlelady from Washington is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In this tax bill, Republicans have gifted the wealthiest corporations and individuals with massive new tax cuts and loopholes to take advantage of. But when I go home to my district, there isn't a mother working 2 jobs to put food on the table, or a farmer struggling through a bad year, or a senior trying to pay for a prescription who has ever told me that tax reform means corporate cuts on the backs of them and their families. They know Republicans always promise that the benefits will trickle down to working people, but they never do and they never will. What's worse, Republicans have made it clear that cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid are next. This bill takes care of corporate special interests, the wealthy and the well-connected, while putting middle-class Americans' finances and health care on the chopping block. We need tax reform that helps middle-class families. This bill does the exact opposite. I urge my colleagues to oppose it, and I yield back.
Gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, I'm really proud to yield 1 minute to the gentlelady from Indiana, Ms. Walorski.
Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong support today of H.R. 1, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. If you believe the rhetoric you hear, you may think this bill means the world is ending. I guarantee you it's not. The truth is this tax cut bill means a brighter future for the hardworking people and hardworking Americans who will have more money in their pockets and a better shot at the American dream. Here's the facts. We're cutting taxes for Americans at all income levels. We're doubling the standard deduction, we're doubling the child tax credit, and preserving the adoption tax credit. We're keeping deductions for charitable giving, mortgage interest, medical expenses, and student loan interest. We're improving 529 education plans and leaving retirement savings alone. People will be able to keep more of their money they earn and spend less time filing their taxes. Mr. Speaker, this isn't just a good bill, this is a great bill. This isn't the apocalypse, it's a new day in America. I urge my colleagues to make history and support this momentous bill, and I yield back.
Gentleman from Massachusetts with 9 1/4 minutes. Remaining.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With that, let me introduce the gentlelady from California, the former Revenue Commissioner the state of California, who is going to tell us about the state and local tax deduction ending. Congresswoman Chu for 1 minute.
Gentlelady from California is recognized for 1 minute.
We were promised a middle-class tax cut. This is not it. What we have instead are tax cuts for the wealthiest paid for by the rest. So what happened? Maybe Trump thinks multimillionaires are the middle class. Or maybe this all is just a tax scam. To see how working families will pay for corporate interests, all you have to do is read the bill. Hard to do because it was written overnight behind closed doors. Tax cuts, they reduce the tax rate for the wealthiest from 39.6% to 37%. State and local taxes, they cap the deduction to just $10,000. But in my state of California, the average deduction is $18,500. Meaning families will be forced to pay taxes now on twice their income in order to give a staggering tax break to corporations. So hear this, 83% of the benefits of this bill goes to the top 1%. Who gets cut? Seniors, families, children. Is this the right thing to do? The answer is a resounding no.
Gentleman from Texas with 9 1/2 minutes remaining.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Proud to introduce and yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Bishop.
Gentleman from Michigan is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act today. At its core, reforming our nation's tax code is about how we, the policymakers, view the role of government in our economy and society. Over the past 10 years, the American people have seen a stagnant economy and a steady decline in labor force participation. Meanwhile, the government has grown to an unprecedented level, the economy has slowed, and our debt has nearly tripled. All the while, government has given away sweetheart deals to select companies, leaving Main Street job providers to hold the bag. But all of that ends today. Today, we reduce the burden on job creators and families, and today we create an environment that will generate real economic growth. The conference committee report before us today is about our constituents, about allowing our constituents and neighbors to keep more of their hard-earned money. For starters, we double the standard deduction, which means that for joint filers, the first $24,000 of their income is free from federal income tax liability. That's real money back in the pockets of working-class families across America. The plan expands the child tax credit to $2,000 per child to help families with the cost of raising children. For students struggling with debt, the bill preserves the student loan interest deduction, and graduate students will continue to receive tuition tax waivers tax-free.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to yield 30 seconds to the gentlelady from New York, Congresswoman Velasquez, who will tell us about the great harm that this does to New York and to the island of Puerto Rico.
Gentlelady from New York is recognized for 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After Maria, members of Congress on both sides of the aisle, including the Republican leadership, went to Puerto Rico. They looked the Puerto Rican people in the eye and promised to help. This bill betrays that promise. It treats Puerto Rico as a foreign jurisdiction, levying new taxes on companies operating there, creating incentives for them to leave the island. All told, these provisions will cost Puerto Rico more than 200,000 jobs. That is how you help Puerto Rico? This bill is morally bankrupt. It harms American citizens everywhere, and especially the 3.5
Gentlelady's time has expired. Gentleman from
in Puerto
Texas.
Rico. I yield back, vote no.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. Very proud to yield 1 minute. Gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Schweikert.
Gentleman from Arizona is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and Mr. Chairman. Look, I'm going to give everyone a slightly different view. There was an interesting editorial this weekend in the Wall Street Journal, and it basically said, hey, those on the left look at income inequality. Those on the right, we look at economic expansion, economic growth. They're both honorable. But if you actually look at the data of the last 10 years and our own CBO projections of the next 10 years, 1.8% GDP, we're in incredible trouble, because you actually look at what happens when you have this flatlined economic expansion and growth. Income inequality gets dramatically worse. You look at the charts when we've had time of economic growth, it closes. Everyone gets a better chance. And if you actually do care about the promises we as a government have made to retirees, working people, veterans, young people, we will not have the resources if we continue for the next 30 years, as our own CBO says, of 1.8% growth. Status quo is devastating. Yield back.
Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from South Carolina, the Assistant Democratic Leader, Mr. Clyburn.
Gentleman from South Carolina is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my friend for yielding me this time. Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong opposition to the Ryan McConnell tax scam bill. This bill should be named the Republican Donor Class Relief Act, because that's what it is. And several of my Republican colleagues and many in the media have admitted as much. This tax scam represents a grotesque set of priorities revealing deep depravity of American values. One of the first principles of our Judeo-Christian value system is grounded in what we do for the least of these. From the outset, this bill violates that principle by lowering the marginal tax rates on the wealthiest among us by 2.6 points, while raising those rates on the least among us by 2 points. This tax scam bill adds insult to that injurious act by doubling the estate tax exemption from $11 million to $22 million. The Republicans add further insult to injury by lowering the tax rates for corporations by 14 points, while raising tax rates on 86 million middle-income families. It makes the tax cuts for corporations permanent and the minuscule individual cuts temporary, while also kicking 13 million people off their health insurance and increasing premiums for millions more. The tax scam caps deductions for state and local taxes and home mortgages, adds over $2 trillion to the deficit. Our children and grandchildren will be left with the bill. Mr. Speaker, history will not treat kindly the crass cruelty of the so-called Christmas gift for hard-working Americans. I yield back.
Gentleman from Texas.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'm really pleased to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Rothfuss.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Today we move away from trickle-down government redistribution economy to one that is bottom-up, organic, and growing. While the trickle-down government of the last 8 years was great for Washington and the 1%, it did little for the rest of the country. Today we turn the tide and put money back into the pockets of hardworking taxpayers and Main Street businesses. This bill gives immediate relief to moderate income and middle-class families. A single mom earning $41,000 with one kid will see a tax cut of $1,300, while a family of four making $73,000 will get more than $2,000 back. The question is, will we vote together and put this money back into the pockets of hardworking Americans, or will we keep that money here in wealthy Washington, D.C.? Will we vote together to level the global playing field for America's businesses and end the unfair status quo that sends American companies and jobs overseas? It's an easy choice, Mr. Speaker. Vote yes on this bill, and let's make America prosperous again.
Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Always an honor to introduce the gentlelady from California, the Democratic leader, Ms. Pelosi.
Gentlelady from California is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentleman for yielding and salute him for his extraordinary leadership in being a champion for America's working families. I commend him and the Democratic members of the House Ways and Means Committee for putting forth the facts on what is in this bill. Mr. Speaker, today we choose what kind of country America will be. One that champions the ladders of opportunity for all, or one that reinforces the power of the wealthiest and well-connected. Outside the Congress, the American people have already made their decision. Polling shows that Americans oppose the GOP tax scam by a margin of 2 to 1. Hardworking families see right through the brazen con job Republicans are trying to sell them. So why aren't our Republican colleagues standing with their constituents? Why aren't they joining us insisting on a better deal for American families? Why aren't they joining us in demanding that we write real bipartisan tax reform that puts the middle class first? Because helping the middle class has never been their goal. From day one, the donors, lobbyists, and the wealthy and well-connected came first. The Frankenstein monster of giveaways and special interest loopholes we're voting on today proves it. And this monster will come back to haunt them, as Frankenstein did. Republicans claim that their bill is a middle-class tax cut. The fact is, according to the Tax Policy Center, their bill raises taxes on 86 million middle-class households. When the Washington Post asked Edward Kleinbard, former chief of staff for the Joint Committee on Taxation, if the tax package in aggregate would mean a middle-class tax cut, he said, "That's delusional or dishonest to say. It is factually untrue. The only group you can point to that wins year after year and wins in very large magnitude is the very highest incomes." Joint Committee on Taxation, former chief of staff. The only greater delusion in this bill is the ludicrous Republican insistence, their claim, that these giveaways to the wealthiest will pay for themselves. As Bruce Bartlett has testified in our hearing and in public, Bruce Bartlett is the architect of Jack Kemp's supply-side economics. He said, when it comes to tax breaks for the wealthy paying for themselves, it's not true, it's nonsense, it's BS. He said the whole words. In a few minutes, Republicans will vote to explode catastrophically our national debt. At minimum, a $1.5 trillion, likely $2.2 trillion or more. Where are the vaunted Republican deficit hawks? Are they endangered? Are they extinct? Do they care about the deficit when we pass giveaways for the rich and big corporations? They don't care about deficits then. Tax breaks for the rich, corporate tax breaks, we don't care about the deficit. Or do Republicans only care about the deficit when the issue is helping children, seniors, our veterans, who are a large part of hardworking Americans? That comes later. My colleagues, my fellow Americans, remember this vote. Remember the vote when they will cheer. At the end of this vote, they will stand up and cheer, adding trillions to the national debt in order to give tax breaks to the wealthiest 1% and to big corporations. They'll cheer that. And they'll cheer when they say we can't afford to protect the health of our innocent children. They'll cheer that. And remember, they will cheer when they tell you we can't afford the next step. We can't afford Medicaid, Medicare, and a dignified retirement our seniors spent a lifetime earning. That's an applause line for them. And remember this day when Republicans cheer for a bill that hands a $4,000 child tax credit to families of 4 earning $400,000 a year. You earn $400,000 a year, you get $4,000 in a child tax credit. But if you're poor, A single mom of two, or a mother of two earning only $14,500, guess how much she gets? $75. $75. Today we gather on this floor in the midst of a holy season. In this season, we celebrate the miraculous blessings of God. We reflect on the wondrous joy of children and our responsibility to them. We remember our duty to live justly. And for those of us blessed to serve in this Congress, we must remember our special responsibility to govern fairly, to meet the needs of all of God's children. In this holy time, the moral obscenity and unrepentant greed of the GOP tax scam stands out even more clearly. As the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops said early on, here it is, this proposal appears to be the first federal income tax modification in American history that will raise income taxes on the working poor while simultaneously providing a large tax cut to the wealthy. The bishops go on to say, this is simply unconscionable. They'll be cheering it, unconscionable. This is in sharp contrast to the words of Senator Hatch. Remember what the bishop said. This is unconscionable. Now here, get back to the Republicans. This is in sharp contrast to the words of Senator Hatch. He said, now he's the chairman of the Finance Committee in the United States Senate, an author of this bill. And he said, I have a rough time wanting to spend billions and billions and trillions of dollars to help people who won't help themselves, won't lift a finger and expect the federal government to do everything. How about that? Tell that to the moms we just saw speaking out with their children, children with disabilities, who wonder, how could this be so cruel? This is an act of misery, not according to Senator Hatch. And that's in terms of getting back to our bishops. In his encyclical, God is Love, and I've said this to you before, my colleagues, but with obviously no effect on the Republican side, Pope Benedict quoted the urgent moral wisdom of St. Augustine. 17 centuries ago, my colleagues, 17 centuries ago, St. Augustine said, a state which is not governed according to justice is just a bunch of thieves. Pope Benedict went on to say, the state must inevitably face the question of how justice can be achieved here and now. And he cautioned against, in his words, the danger of certain ethical blindness caused by the dazzling effect of power and special interest. My colleagues, is there justice in a bill that rewards corporations shipping jobs overseas, jobs of hardworking men and American women and veterans shipping those jobs overseas? Is there justice in that? No, I don't think so. Is there justice in a bill that spikes health care premiums and may add 13 million Americans to the ranks of the uninsured? No justice there. Is there justice in a bill that raises taxes on 86 million middle-class families? Here we are. Raises taxes on 86 million middle-class families, and they try to present the delusion that it's a middle-class tax cut. Is there justice in a bill that hands a breathtaking 83% of its benefits to the wealthiest 1% of Americans? 83% of its benefits to the top 1%. Is there justice in a bill that explodes the national debt to give the wealthy and the well-connected a break and sticks the debt with our children? Is that justice? I didn't think you thought so. I wish our Republican colleagues would join us. This GOP tax scam is simply theft, monumental, brazen theft from the American middle class and from every person who aspires to reach it. The GOP tax scam is not a vote for an investment in growth or jobs. It is a vote to install a permanent plutocracy in our nation. They'll be cheering that later. It does violence to the vision of our founders. It disrespects the sacrifice of our men and women in uniform, who are a large part of our middle class and to whom we owe a future worthy of their sacrifice, and it betrays the future and betrays the aspirations of our children. It morally demands a no vote from every member of this House of the people. With that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud. Yield 1 minute to the gentleman from California, Mr. McClintock.
Gentleman from California is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I opposed the original House bill because it severely limited or abolished broad-based deductions, resulting in higher taxes for many families in high-tax, high-cost states like California. Thanks to Chairman Brady's leadership, this bill has largely addressed these objections, and in commendation with much lower rates, it assures that nearly every California taxpayer will pay lower taxes. More important still is the higher wages and better jobs it means for all Americans. Last Friday, I toured a local company that makes the active ingredient for certain drugs. Yet the actual medicine is not produced here. It's produced in Ireland because
the chair has detected a disturbance in the gallery in contravention of the law and against the rules of the House. The Sergeant at Arms will identify the person or persons responsible and have them escorted from the House chamber. House will be in order. Gentleman from California is recognized for his remaining 20 seconds.
Mr. Speaker, I was saying that the actual medicine, the ingredients produced here, but the actual medicine is produced in Ireland solely because of our uncompetitive corporate tax. Because of this tax reform, the company plans to grow dramatically here at home, employing hundreds of new workers. That's what the Democrats mean by tax breaks for the wealthy. The proof of these policies will come over the next year, and every American will be able to decide for themselves if they're better off because of it. I'm now highly confident their answer is going to be a resounding yes.
Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to inquire as to how much time is remaining.
Gentleman from Massachusetts has 4 3/4 minutes remaining.
I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman's time is reserved. Gentleman from Texas.
I yield myself 4 minutes, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from Texas is recognized for 4 minutes.
There's only one fundamental question today. Who gets to decide? When Americans work hard for their money, who gets to decide what you do with it? Is it you, or is it some nameless, faceless government worker here in Washington? When a family with young children, is working feverishly to fund their kids' future, who gets to decide how they spend their money? Them or Washington? The single mom fighting every day, trying to get by and give a good life to her daughter, who decrees where her money goes? When a Main Street business owner, when they work late into the night and through the weekend, risking every penny they own to reach their dream, who gets that meager profit each day? Does it go to you, who earned it, exhausted at the end of a long day, or is it grabbed by a federal government who doesn't even know your name, except on April 15th? Our communities have watched their companies, jobs, and futures move overseas for too long. Our local businesses, they've been fighting other countries with one hand tied behind their back from an old, outdated tax code. They deserve a new tax code that allows them to compete and win anywhere in the world, especially here at home. And when they compete and win, who decides where that money goes? Today, Washington says spend it overseas. Our new tax code says bring it home. Spend it here in America to grow our jobs, our paychecks, our communities. That's why this moment is so important. Opponents of this tax bill, they don't really worry about tax cuts for the rich. They worry about tax cuts for you. Because if you spend your money, they can't. If you have the first claim over your earnings, they no longer do. And if your dreams come before theirs, everything in Washington changes. Everything. Given a choice between the federal government and you, we choose you. Hardworking American taxpayers. We choose you, the only special interest that truly matters. Americans deserve a tax code for a new era of American prosperity. We deliver on that promise because it's your money. Speaker, I yield back. In reserve.
Reminded to address their remarks to the chair, and the gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself the balance of our time.
Gentleman is recognized.
So in 1 month, we have taken the entire revenue system of the country without one public hearing, without any witness testimony, without the solicitation of one expert. We, meaning the Republican majority, they've decided to go forward with this reckless plan. Contrast this with Reagan and O'Neill and Rostenkowski and Packwood in 1986. When Gephardt and Bradley first offered their bill in 1982 on tax reform, 4 years ensued before the measure came to the floor for passage, and in that time, 450 witnesses offered testimony. Every expert from every nook and cranny in America was invited to offer their vision of what a better tax system might look like. And to those individuals, and I knew them all because I went to the committee when Mr. Rostenkowski was the chairman, they saw that as the fabled achievement of their time in a bipartisan manner. And you know what else? Secretary Reagan and Chief of Staff Jim Baker sat through the markups on that tax reform measure. Now, Secretary Mnuchin instead has said, nobody at the top will get a tax cut. And then they cut the rate from 39.6 at the top to 37. Well, nobody at the top will get a tax cut. We're going to double the exemption on the estate tax so that you might now keep $22 million rather than $11 million without any formalization of taxation. And my friend, Mr. Brady, and he is my friend, he spoke before about the people's money. Well, you know what the people's responsibility is? 1 million new veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan. That's the people's responsibility. When we talk about responsibility and the people's money, Medicare is the people's responsibility. Social Security is the people's responsibility. Medicaid today, as we celebrate the extension of life expectancy in America, Medicaid now cares for people with dementia and Alzheimer's disease. That's the people's responsibility. They have carefully taken theology and wed it to science fiction. Remember what we've heard around here all of these years? Don't worry, tax cuts pay for themselves. That was the offering in 2001, $1.3 trillion worth of tax cuts. Well, we get to 2003, another $1 trillion worth of tax cuts. And by the way, there was time in between for a repatriation holiday at 5.25, all advertised on the basis of job creation. And layoffs ensued almost the next day. This money is going to be used for stock buybacks and dividends. There will be little investment in this last opportunity where we should have invested in community colleges and vocational education and apprenticeship programs. 6 million jobs in America go unanswered every single day because of a skills alignment problem and also the horror of what opiate addiction has done across the United States and has sidelined 2 million people. So what they're telling us today is the following. We've got tax simplification. What happened to the postcard? As I said earlier, we're going to have to carry around a billboard for tax simplification to figure out what's in it. They keep talking about phase-ins and phase-outs. I'm telling you, we'll all be passed out by the time they get done with this. This is more complexity. And wait till people have a chance over the next few weeks to sort what's in this bill. But here's something you might give some thought to. The bottom quintile, you're going to get $60 a year. The second quintile, you're going to get $380 a year. The top 1%, they're going to get $51,000 a year. And the top 0.1%, they're going to get $193,000 a year, all in the name of middle-class tax relief. So as we proceed to the holiday, they're telling us this is their Christmas present. And you know what they're doing with it? It's going to be Christmas hangover debt, and they're putting it on the credit card and adding $2.3 trillion to the federal debt. Merry Christmas.
Gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to yield 1 minute to a gentleman who has devoted his life to this moment in tax reform. Our Speaker of the House, gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Ryan.
Gentleman from Wisconsin, the Speaker. The Speaker of the House is recognized for 1 minute.
I appreciate the gentleman. First, I want to start off by thanking all of the members and the staff of the Ways and Means Committee for all of their hard work in putting this bill together. I want to thank them for this. I want to personally thank one of my predecessors from the Ways and Means Committee who helped lay the foundation to get us to where we are today, and that is Dave Camp. Dave Camp did a lot to help us get to where we are. I want to, most of all, commend and express my profound admiration to the architect of this measure, Chairman Kevin Brady. His endless patience and his persistence and his great demeanor have seen this through and gotten us to where we are today. My colleagues, this is a day I've been looking forward to for a long time. We are about to achieve some really big things. Things that the cynics have scoffed at for years, decades even. Ideas that have been worked on for so long to help hardworking Americans who have been left behind for too long. Today, we are giving the people of this country their money back. This is their money after all. Mr. Chairman, or Speaker of the House is not in order.
The chair notes a contravention of the law and against the rules of the House. The Sergeant at Arms will identify the person or persons responsible and have them escorted from the House chamber before proceedings will resume. The chair will also remind all persons in the gallery that they are here as guests of the House and that any manifestation of approval or disapproval of the proceedings in the House are in violation of the rules of the House. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Wisconsin, the Speaker of the House.
I'd simply like to remind my colleagues and the Speaker that my minute can last for as long as I want it to last. I'm just saying. As I was saying, Mr. Speaker, today we are giving the people their money back. The bottom line here is the typical family making the median income in America will get a $2,059 tax cut next year alone. What this is real relief for families who are living out their paycheck to paycheck, struggling to make ends meet. You know, they hear about the economy getting better. They turn on the TV and they see the stock market going up. But now we need to make sure that these people in our communities, in our country who are struggling, see their own personal economy getting better. And that's what this is all about. We got to understand that times are tough for a lot of people in this country right now. Today, this is about how much better things can be. This is about more jobs, fairer taxes. It is about bigger paychecks. It's about faster growth and upward mobility. It's about a strong economy that makes all of us stronger and healthier. Those are the effects. Those are the benefits of tax reform. Here is the heart of it. And here is why this is so vital that we do this. Here is what it speaks to and what I truly believe is a generational defining moment for this nation. Our tax code is so broken that it undermines the very thing that makes our nation exceptional in the first place. It punishes hard work. It discourages our entrepreneurial spirit. It dims freedom and free enterprise. It limits our potential of our own people. When Americans see good jobs going away, when Americans wake up and they see the companies that they grew up with in their communities going away, they wonder if we have lost something bigger. The mission that drives us here today is to restore this beautiful American idea. What is that idea? That the condition of your birth does not determine the outcome of your life. You can work hard, play by the rules, get ahead, and make a better life for yourselves and an even better one for your kids. It is that sense of possibility. We want people to be free to strive and to make the most of their lives. We want a country with the resilience to endure and tackle all of its challenges. Mr. Speaker, economic growth and job creation will not solve all of our problems, but it will help make all of our problems much easier to solve. This is the direction that we are choosing here today, because we know exactly where the status quo leads us. For years, the powers that be have blocked and stonewalled reform under the umbrella of an arrogant, condescending, and paternalistic ideology. An ideology that seeks to limit mobility, to limit aspirations, to accept less in our lives. It's a view of the world that sees life and the economy as a zero-sum game. Your gain comes at my loss, therefore we can't do it. Look at where this got us.
Shortly, I'm going to
the worst recovery since World War II, flat wages, and an economy just limping along. Stagnation is a breeding ground for a class-based society where elites predetermine the outcome of our lives. That is not the American idea. They will tell you this: just hand over more freedom to the unelected bureaucrats and they'll figure it out. They know more. We'll all just be okay. Hand over more of your hard-earned dollars to the IRS and it will all be okay. There's your scam right there. We know, given the opportunity, there are no limits to what our people, our fellow citizens, our brothers and sisters can do. Yet for years now, this tax code has been skewed to the well-connected, full of special interest carve-outs and loopholes. Meanwhile, the hard-working family in America has got to jump through all the hoops that the IRS can muster. Reform means we bring rates down at every level. We clear out these loopholes so that people can just keep more of what they earn in the first place because it's their money in the first place. No special favors, just basic fairness. Reform means simplification too. Nearly 9 out of 10 Americans will still be able to do their taxes on the form the size of a postcard. That is amazing. And given the opportunity, there are no limits to what our workers and our entrepreneurs can do. Yet while the world has changed, while the world's become more competitive, closer, smaller, our tax code has not. Instead of leading, we've been falling behind, to the point where we now are the worst in the industrialized world at how we tax our businesses. We tax our businesses a whole lot more than our foreign competitors tax theirs. They win, we lose. That's not fair. It is basically open season for our competitors to come in and take our jobs overseas under the current tax code. Reform means we go from the back of the pack to the front of the pack. So instead of the slow growth that we've been slogging through for years, we want to get back to real sustained economic growth. We want to build an opportunity economy where there is more demand for higher paying jobs. That's the whole purpose of all of this. Make sure that people can grow up and reach their potential. Make sure that the jobs are there to give people the careers they want so they can reach their potential, so their families can reach their potential. That's why we're doing this. This is without question the single most important thing we can do to once again make America the best place to do business. You know, there's more just than that in this bill. With this bill, we're finally restoring the freedom to make your own health care choices. By repealing the individual mandate at the heart of Obamacare, we are giving back the freedom and the flexibility to buy the health care that's right for you and your family. And finally, we are doing something truly to put America in the lead. We are doing something historic to develop our own energy resources. Some people have been working here since I was in the 2nd grade on this project. After decades and decades in this chamber, we're opening up a small, non-wilderness area of the Alaska National Wildlife Refuge for responsible development. It is the most ambitious step we have taken in years to secure our own energy future. This is one of those times to just take a step back. Let's just take a minute, collect ourselves, and step away from the noise. We talk a lot in these jobs about turning points. There is no doubt that we are at one of those turning points right now. And this one will determine the kind of country we're going to have this century. But too often, we have seen before how doubt creeps in, how the tyranny of short-term thinking takes over, and history fails to turn. There is, after all, a reason that this has not been done in 31 years. This really is a generational defining moment. And let's let this generational defining moment be defined by optimism, not by fear. By the rising aspirations of our people and not the doom and gloom of managed decline that we have become too familiar with. This is our chance. This is our moment. Let's turn at this turning point. Let's reclaim the principles that have guided us for generations. Let's recapture our destiny for generations to come so this beautiful story of the American idea is repeated and passed on to the next generation. A nation more united, more confident, more prosperous, and, Mr. Speaker, more free. Pass this bill. I yield.
Resource affiliate change around potential authorities is starting now on Resource Channel 4.
Say again. Gentleman from Texas with 2 minutes to close.
Mr. Speaker, let's pass this bill. I yield back all remaining time.
All time for debate has expired. Pursuant to House Resolution 667, the previous question is ordered. For what does the gentleman from Massachusetts seek recognition?
I ask for the yeas and nays.
Gentlemen have a motion.
News Source affiliate.
I do.
The White House.
I have.
Support the motion.
Mr. Dale, Massachusetts moves to recommit the conference report on the bill H.R. 1 to the Committee of Conference with instructions to the managers on the part of the House to disagree to Section 11.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to dispense with the reading.
Without objection, the previous question is ordered on the motion to recommit. The motion is not debatable. The question is on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. No. The noes have it. The motion is not agreed to. Gentlemen from
I ask for the yeas and
Massachusetts. Nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. Sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 8 and Clause 9 of Rule 20, This 15-minute vote on the motion to recommit will be followed by 5-minute votes on adoption of the conference report, if ordered, and suspending the rules and passing H.R. 4323. This is a 15-minute vote.
This is Steve Lookner again with Right Side Broadcasting. Sorry, folks. We had a little bit of a freeze here. So right now what's going on is we have a 15-minute vote, which is not the final vote. And I want to actually also say in the chat room, please refresh your stream if you're getting a spinning circle. So we're awaiting the final vote. The final vote is not yet. The vote that's going on right now is a 15-minute vote. And why is there now? There's an ad playing on my stream. Sorry about that, everyone. There's a 15-minute vote going on, and then after this 15-minute vote, when that vote doesn't pass, then they will have the final vote. So there's 11 minutes and 34 seconds remaining right now. 11 minutes and 34 seconds until the final vote. So just to clarify, this is called a motion to recommit. This vote right now, it takes 15 minutes. This is not the final vote. This is not the final vote. This is a 15-minute. Well, I guess so. There's 13 minutes on your screen. So when this vote's over, then we'll have the final vote. I just want to be very clear on that. When this vote is over, we'll have the final vote after that. In the meantime, we have about 10 minutes or so until the final vote happens. If you'd like, you can message me with your comments. It's supposed to maybe happen tonight or tomorrow. I saw a tweet from Fox's Chad, is it Pegram or Pegram? I don't know. But he said that the latest he had heard, he's from Fox News, by the way, he said that he had heard that the Senate was hoping to vote on the bill at 9:30 or 10 p.m. tonight, but they don't know if they're going to be able to get to it tonight. So 9:30 or 10 p.m. tonight, maybe for the Senate vote on the tax bill, but that's possibly not going to happen. And it's possible that the Senate won't be able to vote on this bill until tomorrow. So we don't know yet. Assuming this bill passes the House, we don't know yet whether the Senate's going to vote on it tonight or tomorrow. But according to Fox's Chad Pegram,
on HD1 and SD1,
he said the Senate is hoping to vote on this bill around 9:30 or 10 tonight once it passes the House, assuming it does pass the House, which is expected. And also, this vote, again, is not the one going on right now. The vote you see on your screen right now is not the final vote. This is a vote that if the Democrats could win it, would stop the bill from going to final vote, but the Democrats are not going to win this vote. The Republicans are going to win this vote, and then we will have the final vote in about 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes it looks like. So we will bring that to you live here at Right Side Broadcasting. Let me know if you have any comments on this. Give me a shout on Twitter, at Lookner, at Lookner. Kirk Wasson says, are they able to change their vote? Could some of the Dem yays be changed at the last minute? So are you asking about this vote right now, Kirk? Again, this vote that you're seeing now is not the final vote. So this is just a vote to basically stop the final vote from happening. That's why the Republicans are all voting nay on it. And this will be a nay vote ultimately, and the final vote will happen. Reagan Better says, I'm unhappy without student loan tax deduction, but I support the tax cut bill. Hey, Reagan Better, I do the student loan tax deduction. You're not talking about the students being able to deduct their tuition waivers. I'm not even sure about the student loan tax deduction thing. I don't know every single thing in this bill. I haven't sat down and tried to memorize every single thing, so I'm doing a little Google search right here. Let's see if I can quickly come up with this. There are all these little provisions in it, though. I have to look that up, Reagan, better. But I know there was some controversy over, initially it looked like grad students were no longer going to be able to deduct their tuition waivers, but that got taken out of the bill after a lot of grad students and educational institutions protested that. So we are awaiting right now. This is not the final tax bill vote. This is a vote which, if it passed, would prevent the final vote from happening today. But this vote here is not going to pass. The Republicans are going to vote against it. And then as soon as this ends, you can see about 8 minutes left in this vote here. As soon as this vote is over, we're going to get to the final vote where the House will presumably pass the tax bill, and then tonight the Senate will vote on it, or tomorrow, if the Senate votes on it tonight, is expected to be around 9:30 or 10 or something like that. Write to me on Twitter, though, if you'd like to. Give me a shout. Zantog writes in, I hope it passes, but could you explain? I don't understand why some people think this bill will raise their taxes. Well, I mean, there's different provisions in the bill that apply to different people, and there's all kinds of provisions about the child tax credit, about individual rates, about alternative minimum tax, about personal exemptions changing. And there could be people, it's possible for a bill to lower taxes on average, but at the same time, for a person to just be related to these different, to be in such a situation that if you add up all the different changes for that individual person, they could have to pay more in taxes. So it just depends on a person's individual situation. By the way, I saw, I'm just texting my CEO here, our boss Joe, who's also producing today. Sorry, I have the feed up here over so I can watch it, and I keep seeing ads pop up on our feed. I apologize that happens. If an ad pops up, feel free. You can always skip it if you want, because we are not programming the ads. But we okay. So we have right here about 6 minutes left in this. This is not the final vote. This is not the final vote. 6 minutes left on this vote, which the Republicans will win this vote, which will have the effect of sending it to the final vote, and that we expect in about 5 or 6 minutes. So we will carry that for you, and we'll keep an eye on this, but expecting the Republicans to pass this. In the meantime, as we wait for the final vote, give me a shout on Twitter, at Lookner on Twitter, at LOOKNER. We also saw some protesters a couple times get thrown out during the debate. We were watching the final debate before the voting started, and there were a couple different times when protesters stood up in the House gallery and started yelling during the speakers. Speaker Ryan was speaking, and protesters got up and started yelling, or at least one protester did, and they threw the protesters out. Let me check something here. I'm trying to see if there are any updates here, like from people who are there covering it, at the actual House. Colin Wilhelm tweeted out, protesters were saying things like, "You're fired and we're coming for your jobs," as they were led away by Capitol Police. So we have about less than 5 minutes left in this pre-vote. It's a vote that will be voted down, And once this vote does not pass, then we will have the final vote on the House tax bill. To repeat, if you're just joining us, the Senate is expected to to vote on this either later tonight, 7:30 or, not 7:30, 9:30 or 10 p.m. tonight, or perhaps tomorrow. So, but if the Senate votes tonight, it's not expected to be, at least at this point, before 9:30 or 10 p.m. Ludi Shadow Speaker writes in, that's the best I've ever heard from Speaker Ryan. That's what our viewer Ludi Shadow Speaker says. All right, we got less than 4 minutes now until we finish up this vote and get to the final vote. The final vote on the House tax bill. So by tomorrow, I don't know how long it takes to get to the president's desk. So if the House passes this bill in the final vote, which is coming up in a few minutes, then if the Senate votes tonight or tomorrow, and if the Senate passes the bill, how long does it take to get to the president's desk to sign it? Can the president sign it tomorrow if the Senate passes it tomorrow morning, or is there some kind of procedural thing where he needs to wait a little bit to sign it, like a day or something? I don't know. Or will they wait a day to set up will the president have some big signing ceremony? And I don't know the timeline in terms of if the Senate passes this after the House passes it, what the timeline will be on the president signing it. But we will bring the Senate vote to you. We will bring President Trump's vote to you. So we have a vote here. John Saporito says, what's the magic number the GOP needs for passage in the House? Well, there are 435 House members, so that would make the magic number 218, because that would be a majority of the House. So we have about 2 minutes left here in this, you could say, pre-vote. Once this vote does not pass, then we will go to the final vote. This is not the final vote. I keep saying that because people might be joining us and saying, like, wait, why are all the Republicans voting against this thing? This is not the final vote. After this vote, which will be a nay vote, then the final vote will happen. So this vote's going to wrap up, and we're going to carry the final vote for you as soon as it starts here at Right Side Broadcasting. Cat Church says, could President Trump sign this as early as tomorrow? So as I was just saying, assuming the House passes it, in 5 minutes, and then the Senate passes it tonight or tomorrow, I don't know how fast the president can sign it. I don't know if he can sign it can they literally run from the Senate and run the bill over to the White House in theory and just have him sign it then? Or do they have to set it up a certain way and do certain things? So I don't know what the exact time delay is between when the Senate would pass it and when he can sign it. And that's one question is, theoretically, could he sign it right after they pass it? The other question is, would he sign it literally right after they pass it, or would he set up some kind of, say, signing ceremony for the next day? I don't know. RRM says, Steve, YouTube keeps booting me out of RSBN and then playing left-leaning YouTube channels without me even touching my computer. Once in a while, we do have these crazy issues where YouTube does stuff like this, and we don't know why, so we will let them know about this, but we apologize for any kind of thing like that that's going on. I just real quick want to... Okay. All right, so we are going to have, this vote is not going to pass, this one, before the final vote, which means we are going to have the final vote. The nays on this previous vote have it, which means we will have the final vote coming up any time now, as soon as they get there. So we're going to go back to the audio very soon. As soon as there's audio in that House chamber, as soon as the proceedings move forward and we have the final vote, we are going to carry that for you here at Right Side Broadcasting. Thanks to our moderators for moderating our chat rooms today. We really appreciate it. Kat Church writes in, since it looks like tax reform is going to pass, what is next? Is it back to health care? Good question. Well, President Trump did mention infrastructure in one of his tweets yesterday, so maybe they'll work on an infrastructure bill next. Dejan Ribic says, from what he understands, our viewer, Dejan Ribic, says he thinks it's about 2 days for the bill to get to the president's desk usually, so likely Friday signing ceremony. I don't know that for a fact. If I hear anything about that, I'll let you know. But the bill still has to pass the Senate even if it passes the House. Dan Canepa writes in, taxplancalculator.com is a good site to see how your taxes will change if you file a simple return. Taxplancalculator.com. Thank you, Dan. Ryan says, it's sad that the Democrats have set a false narrative about the tax bill. The fact is that all Americans will get a tax cut, and when people realize this, when they file taxes, next, GOP and Trump will rise in the polls. That's from our viewer, Ryan. So you can see now that since this vote did not pass, the vote, the motion to recommit, they are going to move to the motion to send the bill back to committee. That's what this was. This was a motion to send the bill back to committee. That vote did not pass, so the final vote is going to be next. The final vote is coming up in the House of Representatives any minute now. We will bring that to you live. They are voting on the tax bill. And you know what? I got to change my headline here. I didn't realize I was going to be on earlier with my headline up. I don't even know if you can see it. It's very small. Let me change this to House voting on tax reform bill. That's better. Sorry about that. I forgot I hadn't changed my headline. So the House has not passed it yet. They're about to have the final vote for the tax reform bill. Oops. Okay. Let's see. I'm watching here to see what happens. All right, so we're awaiting the final vote here. You can write to me if you'd like while we're waiting. Give me a shout at Lookner on Twitter, at Lookner on Twitter. One sec, guys. What do we have? The tax reform. All right, so the House just voted on a bill to send, on a motion to send the bill back to committee. That bill did not pass. So now we're going to have the final vote. They're about to speak, so I will shut up for a second as we wait for the proceedings to continue. All right, they are voting now on the tax reform bill. They're voting now. They are voting now on the tax reform bill. So they are voting
On
now
this vote,
on the
the
tax
yeas are
reform bill.
191, the nays are 236.
And what you see on your screen right now, that's from the previous vote. But the vote has started. You're going to see the new total. You're going to see the new totals coming up on your screen shortly, or maybe they're there already. I'm a little delayed in terms of what I can see on the screen, so I see about what I'm seeing what we broadcast like 30 seconds ago. But
nays will rise. Sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
So this vote, it's happening now. It's going to be a 5-minute vote. It's a House vote, a 5-minute vote. I have a little bit, I'm a little bit ahead here. There's a little bit of a delay in the video, so I have a couple different sources I'm looking at. They are voting right now. They are voting right now on the bill. And from what I can see, it's a little bit faster than what's on your screen, but from what I can see, yeas are up to 204. So 204 yeas. They need 218 to pass it. 207 yeas. These are the totals I'm seeing in real time. So we got 207 yeas, 218 needed to pass it in the House. This is the final vote on the tax bill. This is the final vote on the tax bill. This is the final vote on the tax bill. Okay, you can see the votes there. Actually, it's up to 212. The count I'm seeing is up to 212 yeas. So there will be a few more votes, about 6 more votes, and then the yeas will have it. So the real-time total is 212 Republican, 214 Republican votes now. You're going to see that soon. Once it gets to 218, that is it, and it is passed. That is it. The House has passed. The House has now passed the tax reform bill. You're going to see it reflected on your screen shortly, but the House has passed. They have 224 votes now. The House has passed the tax reform bill. It will now move to the Senate, but the House has passed the tax reform bill. So you're going to see there are 226 votes now, yeas, 198 nays, 227 yeas, 198 yeas. 227 yeas, 198 nays. That's going to be reflected on your screen shortly if it isn't already. But the House has passed. They have passed the tax reform bill. So now the Senate will need to vote on this bill. They are supposed to vote on it either tonight or tomorrow, but the House has passed the tax reform bill. They have 227 votes for it, and so there's your breaking news. And there was some applause from Republicans on the floor there as the House passed the tax reform bill. If you have any thoughts on this, on the House passing the bill, give me a shout on Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner. Let me know. So the House has passed the tax reform bill. And And that's it from the House. So the Senate is supposed to vote on it either tonight around 9:30 or 10, or tomorrow. Tomorrow, I guess if it's tomorrow, it would be early tomorrow, but we don't know yet. It's uncertain as of the last reports I've seen when the Senate's going to vote on this. I saw a report that said they were going to look to vote on this tonight around 9:30 or 10, but we don't know exactly if they're going to be able to vote on it tonight or if they're going to vote on it tomorrow. So the House has passed the bill, moves to the Senate. Senate will vote on it tonight or tomorrow. We will carry that live for you. Do you have any thoughts on the tax reform bill passing the House? Give me a shout if you do. I am at Lookner on Twitter, at LOOKNER. Reno Doral wrote, "It passed!" exclamation point. So Reno Doral is happy. And Reno Doral also writes to me, take Texas, for example. We only get taxed on stuff we buy, if I'm not mistaken. As a result, we will benefit from this bill. Reno also writes to me, the only reason people are against this tax bill is because it will raise their taxes in Democrat-led states. This is a problem of the Democratic leaders of these states. If they want to fix this, the people complaining need to demand lower state taxes from Democrats. Thomas writes in, he thinks the bill will have a hard time passing the Senate. Well, we will see. Republicans think they have the votes in the Senate to pass this bill. So this is, again, Right Side Broadcasting. We just showed you the House passed the tax bill. Let's see if we can show you Speaker Ryan announcing the bill passing. Speaker Ryan is speaking now. So I'm going to keep talking here. Joe will turn me down if we need to hear something. So the House has approved, again, the GOP tax bill. It is going to move on to the Senate, where they will vote on it either tonight or tomorrow.
On
if it
this
votes
vote,
tonight,
the yeas are 227 and the nays are 203. The conference report is adopted without objection. The motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
News Source affiliates, News Source Channel 3. The House has just...
Liberty for All writes in, glad the tax bill passed. We need to out the GOP nays.
Finished business is on the vote.
Give me a shout on Twitter if you have any thoughts on the tax bill passing the House. Let me know.
HR 4323 is amended, on which the ayes and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
HR 4323, the bill to promote veteran involvement in STEM education, computer science, and scientific research, and further purposes.
And Barbara Braley, thank you so much.
The question
in the
is, will
YouTube
the
chat
House
and
suspend the
comment
rules
sense
and
on
pass...
Gleno on the website. We are viewer-supported here at Right Side Broadcasting, so if you enjoy our coverage, if you're enjoying our coverage of the tax bill and all the other events we've been covering lately, please consider making a donation. You can donate to us by going to the bottom of the YouTube chat and clicking on the $ at the bottom of the YouTube chat. There's a little $ there. We are viewer-supported, so your donations are what keep us on the air. You can also go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. Let me show you this tweet just that was sent out by Mark Knoller, who covers the White House. He said, Speaker Ryan slams down the gavel with gusto on announcing House passage of Tax Cut Bill 227 to 203. So we just saw that. Andrew Beatty just tweeted out, let me show you this. Cheers heard from inside the West Wing as tax cuts passed the House. So when the Senate votes on this, be it tonight or tomorrow, we will carry that vote live for you. So be sure to subscribe to us here at Right Side Broadcasting and click on the notifications bell when you subscribe to us on YouTube. And that way you'll get a notification when we're coming on to cover the Senate debate on this and also the Senate vote on this. Also, you can follow us on Facebook at Right Side Broadcasting, on Twitter at RSB Network. I am on Twitter at @Lookner. I post about breaking out news all the time, so feel free to follow me there on Twitter at Lookner. Oh, we're going to have the White House press briefing coming up. I guess it was delayed, and it's going to take place now. Yes, the White House. So we're going to have the White House press briefing coming up on a different stream. If you want to watch that, go to our YouTube page, Right Side Broadcasting on YouTube, and you can watch the press briefing there. You can see you can see the link there for the press briefing. Yeah, so we're going to switch over. We're going to end this stream now because the press briefing is about to start. So, I don't know, maybe the moderators, one of the moderators, you can post the press briefing stream location. Actually, I can post it. Why am I bothering the moderators to do it? I'll post it in the chat room. But if you want to, you can also go to YouTube and you'll see the live stream up there. Here is press briefing. I'm posting it in the chat room right now. All right, so we're going to wrap up this broadcast right now. We're going to cover the press briefing. I will be on again after the White House press briefing. Thank you for joining us for this coverage of the House vote, the House passing the tax reform bill, and then we will bring you the press briefing now on that other stream, and we will bring you later the Senate voting on the bill either tonight or tomorrow. So thanks for joining us. I'll see you in the post show for the press briefing. The press briefing is about to start. See you soon. Hope you have a good day. Thanks for joining us from everyone here at Right Side Broadcasting.